Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of the AtRandom Podcast. I'm Rick Timmis.
I'm John Wordsworth.
I'm Jackson Matthews.
He's even got a mug to prove it, look at that.
Yeah.
That's the end of the show then, fellas, isn't it? Jack's got the final words. Thank you very much, everybody.
That's it. Hope you enjoyed our insights.
You'll find this show along with the show notes up on the website in a few hours.
Yeah, you can find out where to buy this mug.
Yeah, well, as usual, of course, we've, from the chaos, the disparate chaos from four corners of the planet, the tantric trio arrive with no show notes.
No tantric trio, I like that.
No idea. I'm winging it, Jack. Anyway, so, well, first things first, let's find out from Jackson how things are going with family life. How are you coping under the strain, Jack?
Nice, no, that's good. It's good. No, as I was saying to you earlier, Rick, last couple of days I thought there was a moment where I thought I'd blow a gasket, but then something just clicked and I just went into, I don't know if it's like a parent mode thing, where like they're making a load of noise and they're crying about everything, but you just stop caring.
Parent mode / depression.
Yeah. Do they call them serotonin inhibitors, SSIs, as antidepressants?
I've just realised this is all being like recorded and streamed and like preserved for all time.
Right, we'll be playing it to your to Bernie when she's old enough. It's fine.
Well, let's turn the conversation quickly to John then, before we lead into anything that might be incriminated evidence. So now, John, you were demonstrating what you've been drinking earlier. Times have got very difficult in Sweden, I understand, and you've had to make a few economic savings.
I've got to say that things are turning kind of for the better. So beer is still the same price as it always has been, but if you go to what they call the Systembolaget, which is the official alcohol store, well, it's just the government-run monopoly on alcohol. Then actually it's about the same price as the UK, so I've been going there more now to buy proper drink for home, and that isn't even limited to 3.5%. You can get all sorts there. So.
Oh, that's good. And so is that operated by the government through some sort of licensing deal? So the government is making cash off of the back of the discount liquor store.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the whole thing I think is just run by the Swedish government. So they own the monopoly on selling alcohol above 3.5%. But then obviously they get all the money from it. So, and the stores it's kind of the only frustrating thing about the whole deal is that the stores don't open much at the weekends. It's like on Saturday it's 10 till 3, so you've got to plan ahead basically. So it's not uncommon here to just have a fridge full of beer ready and waiting because you don't want to be caught short. So
not so bad.
Well, I don't know. We're breaking all the laws here, aren't we now, really? I mean, we moved from Jackson to try and save him from incrimination. We find out now it's got worse because now the Swedish government is effectively supporting an alcohol industry which is totally in breach of European Union state aid legislation. Fantastic.
And how about yourself, Rick? Any incriminating evidence today?
Always, John. The great thing about my current state of mind is that things happen at such a pace that nothing goes in and nothing gets remembered. So, anything that could have been written down wasn't, and anything that could have been said had been forgotten. But it could be used in a court of law to prosecute me if ever I can remember who I am and what I was supposed to be doing.
Is that why you talk so fast?
No, I talk so fast because I'm nervous most of the time, and the fact I don't know what to say next, and it means I just go into blithering idiot mode.
I can't believe you never know what to say next.
No, quite, absolutely. So, well, things are good here. I think that things been having some interesting times. So I'll talk a little bit more about. I managed to get that GTX 970 out of the box, which was good, the NVIDIA graphics card, and we'll perhaps revisit that a little bit later. And what else has been going on here? Well, I've got quite a backlog of work to do. Those people that are listening to this show, if they've downloaded it from our website, then what's it like in 2024. Because it's taking me rather a long time to get these shows edited up and sent up onto our website for download. But don't complain, folks, because you can watch us live here on the AtRandom YouTube channel, can't they? So it's all good.
Think of it as a time capsule.
I know. I'll be able to download this and see what I was like when I was younger.
Exactly, yeah. Before the European Union.
Yeah. The European Union might have blown itself out, might have run out, but everybody got sick of it and gone home by then, weren't they? Oh, I had enough of this, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Have a war instead.
I was talking about that. We shouldn't talk about politics, but I've got to tell you this. This just made me laugh the other day. I was watching the YouTube channel with some party political MEPs, which shall remain nameless, because you're not allowed national political parties in the European Union, so they get rebranded to something else, and I can't remember what they are. But some party political group that shall remain nameless, and what they did was they were in the Parliament asking questions. It was question time, and so this one MEP asked a question, and then another MEP from the same party asked a blue card question of the statement that the first MP answered. The second MP then stood up and answered the question, and there were these three MEPs in a group, like reiterating this question, and then the camera zoomed out to these three people standing in this empty hemisphere with just three people at the desk. This person complaining about the EU doing something with foreign aid or something, and somebody asking him questions about foreign aid, to him responding and saying how he thought foreign aid could be better spent, and everybody else had gone into Brussels to get some cheese and wine. The hemisphere was empty, nobody was listening. I thought to myself, yeah, that just tickled me. I thought that was really funny. But there we have it. So I'm sure that I'm sure they're all close to going home. I mean, that was almost a unanimous vote. There was only about 1% of the Parliament actually in the Parliament for that debate. So it's very close, and in a minute I think they'll all have gone. Yeah. But there we have it. Anyway, in other news, let me just I'll segue to the news section. The seamless transition with which my verbal diarrhea takes us from one segment to another.
We go from they've all gone home to this.
To this. So
we're all close to going home.
In other news, good news, very exciting news that I came across just today, actually. As you know, I'm a big fan of Ubuntu. As an operating system.
I never would have guessed that, Rick, but you know.
Well, to be fair, you like Linux, but I wasn't entirely sure how you felt about Ubuntu. I was never quite sure which side you came down on it. Like you admired it for what it was trying to accomplish, but I was never quite sure if you felt they were going about it the right way.
Yeah, well, I think. Oh gosh, now that's a tricky question, really. I know what you're saying, because I am a big free software guy and open source guy, and that means that embracing Linux and many distributions and the BSDs of this world and the GNU, obviously the GNU tools and the Free Software Foundation, and all of that philosophy. I really subscribe to that, and I'm a big fan of lots of variety in the tech space, because that's what generates creativity. But I do support a lot of what Canonical have done with Ubuntu, and I know that that's got the community up in arms with different things. I'm not a big fan of the Unity desktop, but that's a personal thing. It's nothing to do with the way the project's been handled or the way they've pulled it together or what they've been doing. It's just that I kind of am really into KDE as a desktop environment, and I get along with it really well, and that's why I choose Kubuntu, I suppose, because I like what the guys at Ubuntu have done. But I like even more what the work Jonathan Riddle and Scala and the rest of the community team, Harold Sitter and the other kind of key contributors and all the other people that have been involved in contributing to Ubuntu. So I guess that's where my political stance. It's much easier to just describe what I don't like, Microsoft Windows. Anyway, what was I talking about?
You're talking about Ubuntu. You're saying you liked Ubuntu, and then I said you didn't.
Then you made that fatal mistake, Jack, of asking a question.
Yeah, well.
Well, look, let's move. I'll move swiftly on. I'll be quite quick with this point because I suspect we'll have more news on this next year. But the announcement is that Chinese mobile phone handset manufacturer Meizu, they're going to be releasing an MX4 handset next year in partnership with Canonical, and this will be the first Ubuntu phone. So this will be Ubuntu on phones being shipped in China, the East, and Europe as well, and that's due out in the end of Q1, beginning of Q2 in 2015, and it looks really good.
That's pretty cool. It's exciting to see someone actually getting traction with that idea, you know?
It's been a while, hasn't it? Remember you were talking about this quite a while ago, so I imagine it's taken them a while to put it together. And do we know anything about the like what it's going to be running, like OS-wise? I take it as something. Is it a derivative of anything else, or is it like something Linuxy or something totally new? Or
well, so it is Linuxy. It is Ubuntu. There's been this move in Canonical. This has been on the cards for a long time. If you remember, we talked a long time ago on the AtRandom show, one of the early ones, where I was kind of talking about the Motorola Atrix phones and how you could get Ubuntu on those phones and effectively be able to plug it into a TV and it'd be a phone and your desktop computer at the same time.
That was it,
and
yeah.
The way that was working was you had to install Ubuntu for Android. So you got a Motorola Atrix phone running Android, you installed Ubuntu on the phone, and it ran like a virtual machine, if you like, on the phone. And then you could connect it to a screen and use it as a split between desktop and phone. What Ubuntu what the Canonical team have been working on, and in fairness, the vision really of the Unity desktop, with the way that the panel slides out, everything has been sort of driven towards a touch-orientated experience. So and done really well. So you've got this convergent platform now that allows you to run Ubuntu on the desktop on your your 28-inch IPS monitor if you want. Or you can run it on your tablet if you want, or you can run it on your phone, and essentially the apps that you use and the interface that you use is the same functionality across all of them. It's completely converged, this convergent platform, and they've been able to do that by leveraging Qt, the Qt framework and the Qt SDK, and well, in our deep thought section, we're going to talk more with John about Qt and Qt development and so on and so forth, and that SDK. So this is a pure, on-the-metal Ubuntu Linux distribution being deployed on the raw handset hardware, Jack, with nothing in between. It's a complete Ubuntu phone.
Okay, yeah. I hate to draw the dreaded comparison, but maybe there's none to be drawn. I might not know what I'm talking about. But you're saying how like an operating system that runs a convergence between like the two devices, right? Like the mobile device and desktop, yeah?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, I was just thinking, is it anything like what Windows was trying to do with their Metro?
Ubuntu Metro.
What's that?
Does it come with Ubuntu Metro?
Ubuntu Metro.
Which is another good name.
Yeah, could be, couldn't it? Ubuntu 8 Metro. Well,
I don't know. Maybe why
yes is the answer, Jack. Except that there are some differences because the experience of the Ubuntu desktop. So basically, on your Unity desktop on Ubuntu, the configuration out of the box is that you have a left-hand panel that hides itself away, and then when you press the key or shift the mouse to it, shift to the side of the screen in any direction. So shift to the side of the left-hand screen, and out come your apps and your functionality. Up at the top of the screen in Unity, you've got that little bar across the top, and all of your messaging and notifications come out of there. And then access to your core applications that you've got running are on the bottom menu on your desktop. And so you've got those three sides to the screen. Take that into the phone paradigm, and it's exactly the same scenario. So you sweep your finger from the left-hand side of the screen, and out swing all your app buttons, and you can scroll through those to choose all the different programs that you've got. If you sweep your finger down from the top of the screen, it reveals all your notification panels with your social media tweets, your messages, your notifications, and so on and so forth. Your active applications are available from the bottom of the screen, and so the the user experience is the same whether you're running it on the desktop or running it on the phone. Now, I wasn't able to discover in the news, but I was really interested by this, whether the same paradigm that they had going with the Motorola Atrix is true on this Meizu MX4 phone, because they Ubuntu tried to crowdfund on Indiegogo their own phone, and that was going to have a very high performance processor in it, and you would be basically able to connect that to your screen, your monitor, via HDMI, and it would drive, you know, a full resolution monitor, so you could use your phone as a desktop, you know, take it into the office, plug it in a dock, up it comes, or just plug it in via HDMI, use it with your Bluetooth keyboard and so on and so forth, unplug it, carry it away with you. So not only is it convergent in the experience that you have, the user experience on both the desktop and the phone, it's the same device. So the data and the connectivity and everything else is going with you. And my hope is, I haven't got this confirmed yet, but my hope is that that's what this device will be aiming to do.
It's a cool vision.
So. Yeah, you see, if it works as you say, then it's what you were talking about. Well, it must be a few years ago now, about this idea of having a mobile portable computer that you just plug in at a workstation, and I mean, obviously, it's like you're limited to a certain. Like you couldn't play Assassin's Creed Unity on it, but
you couldn't play that on a supercomputer, so you say.
But yeah, you know, it sounds wild. Yeah, if they can do what Windows, I mean, I like what Windows were trying to do, but I think they stuffed it. But the idea is a good one. The idea is a good one.
And so, I mean, the next thing, of course, the next bit that I put in the notes here was thinking about the App Store. Of course, I know that I've been watching. There's quite a substantial developer community already developing mobile apps for the Ubuntu platform. So there's a reasonable number of apps that are out there already that you can do. And of course, there's you know, the opportunity, isn't there? Another opportunity, if you like, for an early adopter. For the early adopter community to get involved in the App Store, and you know, I wonder whether, difficult to see it being as popular as something like Android in a short frame of time, where you've got apps and games and all sorts of stuff, but the possibilities are there for sure. And something to, in fact, I'll ask you more about app creation when we start talking about the Qt stuff a little bit later, John.
Do you think will there be apps that only work under certain paradigms? So will there be apps that only work when you're using it as a phone? Do you think?
I suspect so. I
guess they will technically probably run when you plug them into a monitor, but they would look like I guess you could have an app which you've made to run at 1080p, but assuming that 1080p is actually a 6-inch screen, so all your text, if you put it on a big screen, would be massive.
Yeah, well, now I suspect that older apps or older applications that are already available in the Ubuntu App Store at the moment, so if you like, in the software center, in the Ubuntu Software Center, applications that you've got that are desktop prevalent and have been coded as such, things that are using GTK and stuff like this, for example, then they're simply not going to work very successfully, I wouldn't have thought, on your phone. But much of the new applications that have been being developed under the new Ubuntu SDK that's been out for a while now, which essentially is Qt, it's a Qt SDK, that the way that has been developed is that all the interface design is done in HTML5, I think, and JavaScript. And so, if I understand it correctly, those apps are basically scale and change their resolution, whether it's across on the desktop, and they change the layout, whether it's on the desktop, and so on and so forth. I think that's the idea.
But it should be. You'd hope so. I mean, if they're sufficiently smart, then this is the kind of they're among the first issues you have to consider. It's like, what will happen when I go from that device to that device? Is this thing in the middle going to be able to cope with it? What really annoyed me about Windows, the way they did it, was it was almost like they wanted to tell you how to use the device. They didn't start with thinking, all right, so they're going to read this book on both devices. They said, look, tell you what, why don't you do all of this stuff here that we put in front of you, because Metro's great for all that. And you're thinking, well, that's not what I brought to you. I mean, this should be the other way around, rather than you coming up with an idea and then trying to make me like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're getting better now. They're recovering from that now. The trouble is, you can't wipe it all away once you've done it, can you? You have to kind of like pretend that it's wanted for a while as you gradually phase it out.
Yeah, you can't admit failure in this tech world.
No, that's right. You just have to sort of like salvage it, sift it, add another number onto it.
Well, we'll certainly have more. I think we'll have more. I'll certainly be following that story, because I'm very keen to get my hands on one of these devices when it comes out. So we'll probably revisit that more in 2015 and know more about it then. But of course,
one thing that quickly does come to mind, like I could see a nice Unity if it ever worked out that way. But obviously, Google. I mean, some other company came up with the idea, kickstarted it. Google said that's a good idea, and either bought it or stole it. I'm not sure. But they are developing this phone called the Project Ara, which was originally called Phone Blocks. And the idea is you kind of buy an empty frame of a phone, and then it comes with a certain number of spaces into which you can plug modules, i.e. a screen, a processor, a graphics card, RAM, and other things. So like the phone itself is just like almost like a breadboard, and the idea is you just plug your bits into it, and then when after a year you go, I wish I could play all these fancy 3D games. It's like, just buy a new chip, block. I wish my screen was 1080p. Take it off, buy a new one. I wish I had a decent webcam on the front. I do. So you can kind of upgrade it in bits. That will work really well with an Ubuntu system.
Yes, I can see where you're going there. Yeah, I think you're right. Not good enough, Jack.
That's better. I can hear. We can hear you clearly now. You went all max for headroom for a second.
Me?
Yeah, you went max headroom.
I couldn't tell.
Just another day for you.
Just my normal voice accent. That's just how I sound in the real world.
Black market government lager.
Max headroom.
Rick's gone now as well. For a minute, I was all alone in the wilderness. It was all quite scary. It was just me and the live symbol.
Well, listen, Jack, sit down, take a load off, mate. John's got a lollipop for you.
But and her name is. No, so I am going to talk a little bit about. We'll keep it short because we talked about it quite a lot last week. But I'm going to shut up because anyone who's watching this live or watching it back later on Google can have a very quick look as well, I guess. And you guys can have a shiny look and be a bit jealous at the NVIDIA shiny hardware.
Oh yeah, right.
So this is the NVIDIA Shield tablet, which we talked a little bit about a couple of weeks ago. One thing that we talked about was the pending release of Android Lollipop, which, as we know, unfortunately, the Android marketplace is, or the Android kind of device ecosystem is quite fragmented. So I was fortunate enough to get this around release day, as is anybody with a Nexus tablet, I guess. If you haven't got it, who knows when you're going to get Lollipop. But if you're happening to rock a NVIDIA Shield tablet or a Nexus tablet, then you're good to go. So I've installed it. I've had a bit of a play with it for a couple of weeks. First thing I've got to say, it's very white.
Carry on.
So, I mean, I personally think it looks nicer, like overall. So, like if you look at the new home screen, that's quite nice because it's got notifications on. But obviously, because it's the home screen, it wants to turn off a lot.
Oh, all I can see is white.
I'm blind!
You can't really see that, unfortunately. I think it's no.
That's better. Holding it back a little bit like that, John. That was good.
I think as it was turning off.
That's too white.
Let me
Too
turn
much
the
white.
brightness on the screen down, and then you guys can have a very quick look. Because it'd be cool to show you some of the differences. Because I just got rid of the notifications. Idiot! That was one of the things I was going to show you. Adaptive brightness off. Put the brightness down. There we go.
I was having a look at a video just to see the. There was like a guy doing a quick guided tour of it. So my mind can probably fill in a few of the blanks, but.
No, unfortunately, it's a bit too bright to actually show you. But I'll talk about it anyway. So the lock screen has been made a little bit more glossy. So the notifications look a little bit more sensible now. Big clock in the middle of the screen, and then there's kind of notifications, are distinct blocks underneath it, so you can kind of see them a bit more easily. Like each one looks like a separate notification instead of just like we can run a site.
I'm sorry, John. What did you say is in the middle of the screen?
Notifications on the lock screen.
Oh right, okay, right. Oh, it's a clock. Right. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, there is a clock at the top. And then underneath that, the notifications.
Oh, got you.
Oh, Rick. But no, so the notifications they're distinctly nicer. Like you can tell them apart. You can long tap on one of them, and then it brings up more options. So if you want to get rid of a set of notifications, like because Candy Crush keeps popping up or whatever app wants to give us advertising money for the show, then you can just kind of long tap it, and then it brings up the options. You can just get rid of it instead of having to go through loads of settings menus. So it's nicer. Then you can swipe up to unlock your device. The home screen, I guess really it looks much like it did before. I think it does feel a little bit smoother when you're moving around everything. But then as soon as you tap on a folder, you'll notice that this big white box appears with all your icons in. and I know you love white, Jack. So, but it's very Google. It's like we could put design on it. We could try and put some white.
Yeah,
that's
make it white. People love white. I don't know if people are supposed to find it like inoffensive, but like because it's not white, it's not effective enough by itself. From what I can see, they've spaced out a lot of UI elements as well, so to leave a focus on empty space. And for me, that just feels a bit wasteful.
So you didn't buy a device to have lots of empty space on it.
Yeah, that's right. It's not efficient. It's like they're making space for the sake of making space, just to draw attention to it. Or it's like when you go into somebody's house and it's all painted white, and it's just like two chairs, and everything else is like neatly stacked up on bookcases, and you think it's all a bit soulless. You know what I mean? It's all it all feels very flat. I mean, it's nice and it's clean, but I don't really feel I can sit down and like make myself at home. I'm probably taking the analogy too far. But
I wonder how much you can customize it actually, because
yes,
I guess for me, like, I don't get a device like this to interact with the OS. I get it to run apps, so I don't really care what it looks like between the apps, because that's not what I bought it for. As long as it's not like offensive or hard to use. I guess the only thing that feels a little bit weird, like everything just feels nicer, I think, overall. Like, it is primarily white, but everything feels a bit more slick and nice. But the one thing that's slightly annoying is if you go to the settings menu and you tap on one of the buttons, then there's an animation that plays for maybe half a second, but it feels the need to finish that animation before it all goes to the next screen.
Yeah.
And you're like, just don't make me wait.
Yeah.
And it's only maybe a third of a second, but you still watch it thinking, I don't want to look at an animation. I want to see the next screen.
It's an unnecessary third of a second. It's the same thing as like with the empty space.
Yeah,
so they want to draw attention to these spaces in between the things you actually want to be doing, which is like get into the settings. But look, here we go. There's a lovely transition. It's like if it wastes time, then it's not necessary. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm nitpicking because like, because I'm being unnecessarily nitpicky because like I've got my phone exactly the way I want it now. I just don't want so much white.
But no, I think for me personally, I think it's definitely an improvement. It's not like a huge wow, it's all brilliant, but I think it is an improvement. Like, it just feels nicer. It feels a lot more professional, you know, like maybe a little bit less character, but it feels less amateur. There were certain features before that just felt a little bit like a bit amateurish when you can't read the text on an icon or something because you know, like, because they haven't done anything to make it stand out from the background. And it's kind of your own fault. You shouldn't have used that background, but now that can't happen, you know.
I've never really had that happen though on KitKat. I've never noticed any like on the latest version of KitKat it should be said, but I've not really noticed anything that felt glaring or rough. And it was if anything ever looked a bit dodgy about it, it was usually because it was something I'd customized, something I'd put in myself, and I hadn't taken in a compatibility thing into account. But KitKat I've always found pretty solid, apart from the occasional, but it's the usual like weird stuff with like keyboards, like when you go to type something in a box and then it says like, oh, I'm not typing anything until you come back out and go back in. That's irritating. That's
one thing I don't like about the new one is that the keyboard is definitely a downgrade. Now, obviously, the good thing about Android is you can, and iOS, you can change the keyboard and just throw it away. But in the same material type way of doing things, they decided to get rid of all the buttons around the letters on the keyboard. So the keyboard is just white with. I wonder if I can turn on the old one. I probably can actually. So the keyboard is just white with letters on it, or maybe slightly grey, but there's nothing around the letters to describe where the buttons are. They're literally just letters.
No button boundaries on a keyboard of all kinds.
So when you tap on a letter, the box then appears around it, but it's so backwards because you need a box around it to know where you want to push. You know, like there's core user interface rules, and one of them should be it should be obvious when something is a button. You know, like and when it isn't. And there's nothing. I mean, other than the fact that we know it's a keyboard, there's nothing to show you that it's a button. It literally is just a white panel with a big spread of letters all over it. That's it. There's nothing.
See, if you get a box after you've tapped the wrong one, then it's like the equivalent of a guy saying, "I told you so." That's all that is. You still tapped the wrong button.
But because there's no buttons there, the spacebar actually has to be like a grey line because they have no other way of representing a spacebar because there's no buttons.
So you guess where the spacebar is?
Well, they've made a grey box for it, but it feels like they had to make a grey box for that because it's spacebar, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't like it. It does not feel natural to use.
No, it's like refusing to budge from this design aesthetic.
But just to wrap up, I guess we don't want to talk about this too long. But I think some of the other cool things I've noticed that I get more days of battery time out of it, which is good. So
that is good.
Not necessarily so much when I'm using it, but I've always found in the past with Android devices, if I just leave it next to my bed for 4 days, it's dead. Pretty much always, you know. Like I pick it up, if it's got no battery, if it's got any battery, it's like 5% or something. Whereas my iPad, I can just leave by my bed for 2 weeks, I pick it up, and it's still on 40% or whatever. Yeah. So it feels like it's got a lot more idle time. Like I haven't played with it for 3 or 4 days, and it's only on half now. So I think they've done a lot of work there to make it so that when you're not using it, the battery retains a lot longer. It feels smoother, like all the transitions and things feel smoother, but it's kind of hard to tell because it's a high-end tablet anyway. I mean, it's quad-core with 2 gigs of RAM, etc. So whether that would transfer to lower-end ones. And I guess, hopefully, I haven't really got any comparison, but hopefully the apps will be running a lot better because it's now using the new kind of Android runtime. So it's kind of hard to tell again because I don't really have anything to test it with. It's hard to compare because
newer apps will be the ones that will take advantage of it, or will other ones benefit from it as well?
So I think all apps will benefit from it.
Oh, good.
So it's done by the device, but it only affects the kind of Java code. So when you write an Android app, most of them are written in Java, so things like Facebook. But the really intensive ones are written in basically C++. Mm-hmm. Then they're compiled into native code, and then there's a very thin Java layer which just kind of puts you into that app. So I guess you will get performance bonuses for things like Facebook, but you won't get them for games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it means things like Facebook will be smoother, which I think will be great. But again, it's hard for me to compare because I only had the Shield maybe a week before I upgraded it to Lollipop, and it felt smooth anyway. So maybe it is smoother, but it always felt fine anyway. So, but on lower end devices, I think you will feel like you've got another year of life out of your tablet. So it definitely feels like a good upgrade. So if you don't mind the white.
That all sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty good. Of course, I can't upgrade my Samsung Galaxy Tab 7 to anything. I am stuck with what I've got, and I can't even get KDE Connect to be fully functional on it because it uses the messaging interface that was available in KitKat isn't available on my version. So no upgrades for me, unless of course I decide to jettison that and buy a new phone. But there we are.
Yeah, a bit of a shame.
Rick.
I'll hang out. I'm going to hang out for the Ubuntu phone and see where we go. Okay, well, should we move forward and segue again? One of those seamless transitions that I do so well, so professionally transitioning to these things, and move into app reviews. So I've got a little app for us this week, which is that I've found very useful. I came across this only about 3 or 4 weeks ago. As you know, I'm an iRacing.com fanatic. I'm totally gone bananas over my sim racing, and there's going to be more news unfolding about sim racing. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the goodness and badness with the NVIDIA GTX 970 card. But one of the things that I don't like doing is sitting around waiting for when the next race is and having to load up the simulator rig and get it all started to figure out what's going on. I wanted something better, so I started searching around to see whether I could find it. So I went to Google Play and put iRacing in and found iRacing Planner, and I thought, no way, what's this thing? So basically what you do is you load up the iRacing Planner, and it's using iRacing's own API. So they have an API interface that hooks into their kind of web portal for so you can. There's multiple levels to the API that does lots of different things, but in this particular instance, this is just the the iRacing web application portal, and it plumbs into that, and it calls down all of the races that are being scheduled for all different classes. So basically, inside of the iRacing Planner, it shows you the oval circuit, NASCAR A, B, C, the truck races, the GT3 championships, all of those things, and gives you all the times for all the different races. And then from your mobile app, you can just tick on the ones that you want to enter or want to race in, and then what it does is it sits in the background and notifies you just sort of 15 minutes or so before you're due to race. So you can go off and do other stuff and leave everything running, and then bing bing, off goes the phone. I go scurrying out the house, grabbing my phone and rushing off down to my simulator shelter where I can climb aboard my race car and go off racing and have a jolly old time. So very simple, straightforward app, but it's worked really, really well so far, and the guy that's written it has done a really good job of it, and very simple, just a simple orthogonal app. It just does one thing, but it does that one thing really well, and I was very impressed with it. So that's iRace Planner 2, and you can get that from the Google Play Store.
So I was looking at the show notes there, and I saw it in there, and I misread it as iRacism Planner, and I thought, what? What is he playing at? I thought. Just for a split second, then I realised what was going on. But I just need sleep, really. I know you wouldn't pull anything like that, like live on air.
Just to throw you, Jackie. Next time I'm going to write some outrageous things in the show notes just to see what you say.
Yeah.
And then when you bring it up, I'll just change it so you'll be like, I'm sure it said something really rude.
It's like Ron
But
Burgundy.
no.
If you put it up there, he will say it. I'll just be reading through. Oh yeah. Talk about this app we're doing today. It's what? Okay, yeah, all right. I'll just keep on going, sync myself. So do you have an actual car at the moment, Rick? Like an actual thing you can sit in with a screen and stuff?
Oh no. I'm not kind of got that carried away. Yet.
You got it.
Yet. I've
He
seen
says I'm
some
not
stuff
that carried away. You clearly want to, right?
Well, do you know, for a long time I'd been looking at these three screen setups where you've got three big screens that are lined up together, and that creates a portal view, if you like. So you're like sitting in the cockpit and you can see in your periphery vision. You're getting that, and then you can go from there to I saw some stuff on YouTube which was just incredible, right? This was like a fully hydraulic ram-based system, all connected to this racing seat, and the thing was probably sitting about 3 feet in the air with a massive frame connected to it, and then on the frame were three 38-inch or 42-inch plasma monitors, okay, that were going around this seat, and the whole thing was being suspended on hydraulic rams. And you can find this on YouTube. I'll try and find it and put it in the show notes. But when the guy's accelerating and braking, the hydraulic rams are throwing the seat backwards and throwing it forwards and slinging it to the side. And this is in his living room. And so you can overhear these people talking in sounds like Latvian or Polish or something like this. You know what I mean? It's in Eastern European accents, and they're obviously sitting around the television. These people, right, watching TV and eating snacks or whatever, and all chatting to one another. And over on the right-hand side of the room is this guy in this hydraulic rig being thrown around all over the place as he's racing this car. And he's so I haven't got anything like that, no, but it's tempting.
What's Latvian for "I'm leaving you" and I'm taking all the stuff? I think you could listen for that. I bet you can hear it in the background.
you may well be right. So no, no. Unfortunately, the race rig there has been improvements to the race rig. I mean, the machine that it runs was bought as dedicated to do that. It doesn't do anything else. It just runs iRacing, nothing else. Then obviously I bought this GTX 970. I'll talk more about that at the end of the show. Then I've had to do a little bit of fettling and a little bit of investing. So there's a bit of tinkering going on, and then there is surprises afoot, gentlemen. There are big surprises afoot, but super secret. And I can't share it even with you. Just know that Santa Claus is real.
Is that the secret?
That's the secret. That's the secret.
Oh.
I believe in Santa Claus. The elves have come to see me, and I haven't been at the Flyer Garrick Mushrooms before you start. So
I think I know what you're saying, Rick. I think I know what you're going to get for Christmas, and I think it might involve another world.
It might, John.
Hang on. I don't know. Hang on.
Dun, dun.
That's all I'm going to say.
Rick is going to drop acid. Allegedly.
Jack, that should be the title. That should be the title of this show. Season 2, Episode 4. Drop acid. Oh dear. Right. Anyway, so before we disappear into this other vibrant world, just to summarise, iRace Planner for Android. It's the business.
Was it free, did you say? Or?
Yeah, free.
Cool.
Awesome.
So what have you got, Jack?
What have I got? Well, it's in a similar vein to Rick. It follows on from like the main thing I've been into at the moment, because I've not had a hell of a lot of free time with the little darling and everything. So it's so basically I tend to sort of default back to the same thing, which at the moment is arcade emulation, game emulation with my extensive software library, and. And when you've got all of these, every different system needs a different, every different game system from vintage game system needs a different emulator to run it. So you have like all these different emulators running all these different games. But Hyperspin is basically a graphical front end, a very flashy graphical front end. Some may think of it as being a bit gaudy, but it's got a lot of flashy transitions and sound effects that half of them I turn off, to be honest, because they're a little bit much. But it kind of functions as a gaming museum. That's kind of how it presents it. Because first you select your game system, and for each one up will come like a snazzy menu with like a picture of the machine and like a video of it in action. And they've even done, like, instead of like regular menus, they've got like graphics like for each of like the logos of the original companies. So they've done as much work as they can to make it all about the artwork and the packaging. It feels like a museum approach, just to remind you what it felt like, what it looked like, and what it sounded like. And there's a lot of different. I mean, it's all free and everything, but there's a lot of collaboration from people to put together what they call them, like wheel images, the logos for the games, and videos for just demo videos, just to show them in action. A lot of vectorized artwork, that kind of thing. But it takes forever to set up. But after a while, it becomes a bit like when you're customizing your own your desktop. Like we do a lot of that in Linux and stuff, don't you? And after a while, you have it exactly the way you want it. But after a while, like the customizing of it becomes the thing. Especially when you've got like this like level of customization, because you can change the background images, all the icons and stuff. All of it can be like customized right down to the roots, you know. And they've even got other things inside it, like those old games where you had to switch discs back when disc switching was a thing, like insert disc 2 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They've come up with this really skillful menu actually, because when it launches the game, it also launches this other thing in the background. So when you push a button, it brings up like a menu that is again customizable. You can put in your own like background images, and it comes up with info for the game. It's got a disc switching menu. It even has, if you have access to them, the images of the discs themselves, so you can see the images of the discs spinning, and then the one you select disc 2, and then disc 2 will start spinning, and then you click on that one, and as far as the game knows, you've taken the disc out of the tray and put the new one in. But it was just a really intelligent way of approaching that difficult issue of like you have to actually physically switch a disc. But the aim of the whole thing, I suppose, to break it right down, is it's not supposed to, like, you're never supposed to come out of this front end. So the idea is thinking like if you customize it sufficiently, you could run this on an arcade cabinet and never come back to desktop. You would just be going through like menu, game, back to menu, and all with your own customized controls. You shouldn't have to use a keyboard, but that does take a lot of setting up. But after a while, when you've got nothing else to do in the evenings and you're locked in your living room, you don't mind so much.
Sounds great, Jack. Sounds great.
No, it is great. It is great if you've got an unhealthy obsession with this kind of thing. It's a bloody treasure trove. But you have got to be into it and into this kind of stuff. If nothing else, it's just interesting just to see it all there, and just to see like a lot of the artwork and scanned stuff that people have put together, because like people really love this stuff. Thankfully, there's a lot of it. It's completely free, but you can sign up for a gold account to you basically get full access to their FTP, which is like all the graphics that people have made, and you can download them en masse, which does save a lot of time.
Yeah.
But
just lucky when you were growing up, Jack, that you bought those 500 arcade machines, because now you've got free access to the ROMs legally, you know?
Oh no, that would be crazy. Not the arcade stuff, but the other stuff, yeah.
So, see, I quite fancy. I for a long time, I've quite fancied the idea of building actually building an arcade machine. You know, I'm reasonably handy with a bit of woodworking and certainly spray painting and that kind of stuff. I could certainly build a full-size stand-up cabinet that would you could mount a screen in it and all that kind of stuff. Is that ultimately the objective, Jack, to have something sitting in the corner of your room with like controllers on it that you can you've got 500 games and you can just stand there in the corner drinking beer and, you know, rocking the baby and shooting aliens?
Exactly. Yeah, I'll have her on the sling in the front, and it's going to have cup holders, so I can put.
Hey, Jack! Finally, someone you can beat at two-player games.
I don't think she's going to be. The games she's going to have are going to be so much more sophisticated. She'll be like laughing at my games. Mind you, 8-bit games. I don't know if she'll be able to handle 8-bit games. She'll be doing like all Oculus Rift stuff, won't she? That's what she'll be doing, flailing her arms about in the middle of the living room.
She'll be on the holodeck, man.
Oh God, yeah, she will, won't she? And I'll be too old for it.
You've missed it by one generation, Jack.
I will, won't I? That's what'll happen. I can't resent her this early. It's too early.
And what will be really funny is that she'll grow up and be like, nah, holodeck, that's just normal now. And you'll be like,
yes,
it's the dream! And then she'll be like, Dad, why didn't you wait 20 years so you could make it so I could grow up when so-and-so was ready?
Yeah, that's right. It'll be my fault, of course.
Most things are. I mean, I'm still blaming people at work for you. I'm just sort of blaming you for things at work that go wrong.
Nothing. Jack will be giving it. Nothing kicks butt like Tekken.
Tekken 17.
Oh yeah, we'll run it. That'll happen. That'll happen.
Well, Jack, you might be interested to know one of the things they've got going on at Exeter Library. I've been down there and seen this. I've seen the workshop they've got. They've got a maker workshop down there, like a fab lab at the library, and in there they've got a computer programmable wood CNC machine, so you can cut things like, you know, you can machine things like, well, quite complicated things, but you could certainly machine sizable parts and components to make this cabinet. There is a flatbed laser cutter, so for cutting ABS plastics and acrylics and things like this. And then they've got about half a dozen maker bots and different 3D printers, as well as a full color graphics printer that can print 3D graphics onto laminates and stuff like this. So you could, so essentially what you could do is you could make the wooden components, make all the acrylic components, cut them all to bit, you could make about all your little pieces that hanker it all together. You could even paint, you know, take the graphics and lay the graphics onto sticky backed acrylics that you would then stick on your MDF fiberboard boxes and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So all the machinery is down at the library, where they've got lots of lots of space and lots of bits and pieces and a coffee shop and all the rest of it.
Lots of coffee.
So we might have to draw up some plans for a pair. We'll have to make a pair. We have to make a pair of machines. You can do all the computer tech stuff with this Hyperspin, and I'll make the cabinets. And you can do all the artwork for the cabinets, and we'll make a couple of machines.
Your one really needs a steering wheel on it, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does really, but that's okay, because can we get Outrun?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if we can get an Outrun cabinet, customize that one.
They were the days.
Outrun, yeah, man. Oh, don't get me started on that stuff. Yeah, there were so many great gimmicky cabinets that moved and stuff like that.
Oh, they're magic. They were great fun, weren't they? Great fun. Anyway, okay, so that's Hyperspin from Jack and John. App reviews. Cool. What have you got for us?
So I'm going to talk about something which I signed up to for a while. I'm not signed up to it at the moment, but now I've remembered it. I'm going to sign up again. And it's just an app called Marvel Unlimited, and it's the Marvel Comics app. But you can pay something like $10 a month, so £6 a month. But if you buy it for a whole year, it's considerably cheaper. And hopefully some offer will come up over Christmas, so I can get like a whole year's worth for 30 quid or something. But basically, it gives you unlimited access to all of their back catalogue of comics, on your iPad or phone, or possibly Android. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, there's not a massive amount to say other than it's pretty cool. So when it first came out, it was a bit of a hokey app. Like you had to check out these 12 comics, wait for them to download fully before you could read them, and then it was quite a hokey and not a nice experience. But it's just been evolving over time, and I think that's really cool because it kind of shows an interest in making their app better. So now you can they started adding all the fun things that you get with Kindle. So if you're reading a certain page and you put your phone down and then you pick up your iPad that evening, it will say, this is the page you're on. So then it will just get you straight to that page. They've done away with most of the loading now, so I mean, obviously you still have to load it, but you can essentially stream it while you're reading it. So you can just say, I want to read this comic. You wait 10 seconds for the first 2 pages to download, and then as you're reading the first 2 pages, the rest of the comic downloads. So it's just little things like that which makes you think, yeah, they're improving this app. And it's gone from, like I say, which was a pretty hokey experience when I tried it when it was brand new, and I was like, I don't really want to pay for this because I'm worried that it's going to be too hard to read comics. But it's now gone to an experience where it's like, yeah, this is quite cool. You can pay, I think, £7 a month if you pay properly. Hopefully get a deal or something to get that down to half price or something. That's my vision. But then you can just read the 2,500 comics at your leisure, and you can kind of check out, I think it's 12 at a time, and you put them into your drawer, and then you can read them when you're offline. So you can, if you're going to go on a flight, you can get 12 of them downloaded at any time.
That's what I was going to ask you, John. You mentioned, do you know how far back the back catalogue goes? Like, it's not all of their comics, I take it. There's like a limit to how far back or how wide you can go.
I think their adverts say kind of 2,500 comics. So I don't really know how many comics there are.
But they got more vintage stuff, I take it, like in there.
Yeah, so I was reading. I guess I tend to read the more modern stuff anyway because I kind of like the shinier graphics, the sort of shinier artwork. See how far back I can go and see if there's anything. 2003, 1998, A Next, whatever that is. All Winners Comics, 1941 to 1947.
Oh,
Wow.
Now, obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean that they've got everything in between. It just means that they've obviously picked out highlights because there's things here. The Amazing Adventures, 1961, 1970 to 1976. Amazing Spider-Man from 1963 to 1998, and then another category from 99 onwards. They've obviously got every Spider-Man comic. More Spider-Man. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good collection, Jake.
It sounds pretty. It sounds like they've covered all like the main stuff that they think people's going to be interested in. So that's very commendable.
So yeah, I mean, I guess they're probably just going through and scanning everything. So I suspect that by the end of it, they will have everything on there. Like I can't see there's any reason why they wouldn't. They've got some really weird stuff I've never heard of on here. So Bug, 1997. There was one issue of Bug in 1997. And it looks rubbish, and I'm guessing it's not a set piece for them.
There you go.
John, do you know? Sorry, Jack, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, do they have the Frankenstein monster runs amok?
How do I search? Must be a search.
If you can't search quickly, then
no. I will deliver the service.
I just want to see. If it does.
Do you know, John? Will it run on a first generation iPad?
I suspect so because it's only a kind of PDF renderer, I guess, at heart. So I suspect it'll be fine running on anything. I'm afraid they've only got Frankencastle, nothing more. The word Frank in the name. Well, they've got
Frankencastle.
Franklin Richards comics as well.
Franklin Richards got his own comic. The
Franklin Richards saga.
Saga. Oh no, yes, I suppose yes. He did have a couple of things to do. I just always forget that he exists. I'm starting to geek out. I better stop.
But no, it's just a nice app. I guess there's not a massive amount to say because it does what you expect, but you can kind of you can read it page at a time, or you can have it go where it will focus on the panels specifically. I think a lot of the more modern comics have got some sorts of features that you wouldn't get in a regular comic, but I don't really go for all that. I just want to read not brand new, but not old comics. So I'm sure I've seen things about it being able to download videos accompanying the comics and things. As a comic reader, it's pretty cool. You can kind of go from panel to panel if you're viewing it on your phone, or you can just view pages if you're viewing it on your iPad. So it does work quite well on both devices, and I think it's the sort of thing where I'll probably get a subscription. If I can't find a massive deal that will get me a whole year, I'll probably get a subscription for 2 or 3 months and then cancel it and then go, oh, I'll get it again. Sort of thing where you might dip in, read a couple hundred comics, realise you're not reading them anymore, cancel, and then do it again. Like Netflix, really. I'm like that with Netflix. I get Netflix, I watch it for a few months, and then I think, well, I've kind of seen everything I want to see for now. Cancel it. But then 3 months later, I do it again. So.
Yeah.
That's the Marvel Unlimited app. You can download it for free. I think there are like 10 comics or something for free, so you can try it out. But then if you want to actually read more, you can buy the comics one at a time for a bit of a rip-off price, or you can just pay £6 for a subscription and read all of them.
Yeah, I mean, come on. You're going to, aren't you?
It's like they're like £1 or £1.50 each or something, or you can just pay £6 because you read a comic in like 15, 20 minutes, you know. So, and granted, I suppose if you're paying a subscription, when your subscription runs out, you'd lose access to the comics. Whereas if you've bought them, you can keep downloading them. But you know, if you've got 3,000 comics, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to want to read the same one again and again. You're going to just read through all of them. So, no, it's good. Like, I think it's not quite perfect, but it's definitely getting better. And I think it's. I'm going to invest again to get another couple of months of reading on the tube, so I can look really sophisticated on my train ride to work, reading comics on my phone.
You can be Rupert Everett doing your reading on a train on your iPad. With coffee in your hand and your iPad in the other, reading Avengers versus X-Men.
Pop, pop. So no, that's if you like comics, check it out.
Yeah, sounds pretty good. I'll certainly have a look at on the iPad 1. I know because Rhiannon, my daughter, she quite likes reading the Beano, and we got a subscription to Beano on the iPad for her, so she can read loads of them. Oh. And because we were getting we were buying them on eBay, the old comics, and bring them all in, and she's read loads and loads and loads of Beanos. And then Ali found this app dedicated to the Beano, but she likes that. She's into that comic kind of genre sort of stuff. So I might have a look at that and see whether we could just set it up, even if it's just for a little bit of a trial or something, and see whether she's into it and see what she thinks. Because some of those comics that like the Amazing Spider-Man, I used to get that when I was a kid, and it was really good, you know.
Yeah, no, they're a lot of fun. I love comics. Bit biased, but the Marvel ones are really good. So. And for the most part, they're pretty safe for kids, you know.
Sounds really good, and certainly if it runs on my first gen iPad, that's good, because that's now like a shared commodity item across the house. We use it. They use it for all sorts of stuff. They do, you know. The children. We just recently made a little song in GarageBand on it and all sorts of stuff, and it's just used as a utility. They grab it for watching TV and cartoons and all sorts of stuff, and it sits in its little keyboard stand charging, and then they grab it and read stuff, and it's really good. And I don't feel, even though it did cost £700 when it first came out, I don't feel so attached to it anymore. So I let them beat the dog with it and things like this.
You did a chopping board.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on and push forward and get into this deep thought section where we can start talking on things in a little bit more detail. I'm particularly interested in this, John, because I quite fancy sort of getting involved in trying to do some stuff with Qt Creator and the Qt Creator and the Qt development environment. And of course we had the guys from Ubuntu, and KDE is developed using Qt and the Qt framework and the KDE framework 5 and stuff. So So, John, can you just give us, to start with, just tell us a little bit about what Qt Creator is and what Qt is?
Cool. So I'm probably going to be giving you slightly, I'm going to say old-fashioned point of view because I haven't done much with all the new modern Qt Quick. But I know a bit about it from what I've been reading through the kind of Qt project site. So I guess at its core, Qt is a framework for building applications which will take a lot, like it provides an awful lot of classes to do all the kind of GUI work and networking work and rendering work and all the kind of stuff that typically has been different on every platform. And they've bundled it all into one big library which you can tap into to make an app which works across all different platforms, which is its biggest selling point. So if you develop for Windows, obviously, Microsoft have developed all this kind of stuff, and you can just go, Visual Studio, start a new app. I want to do networking. I don't have to worry about all the fiddly, low-level, like socket code using all the different sort of C++ stuff because I've got a nice library here which does half the work for me. So I can just get to building my application. And it's kind of the same with all the GUI. You say, I want this GUI, it wants to look like this. You drag and drop a few things around, and then it works. So Qt offers that similar kind of platform, but for every operating system. So it's kind of, obviously it's really good for Linux as a primary device. So everything that you build runs on Linux. So I can see why the guys at Ubuntu use it for Linux development, because I think it is by far the nicest and most friendly framework that I've used. It's really powerful. It makes very quick work of some quite things that would normally be quite laborious. It works. Very rarely do I sort of sit there going, when I'm developing with it, because it seems quite logical and quite nicely laid out. And the editors, so the editor, or the IDE, which is Qt Creator, is quite feature-rich. And it really makes developing applications for Linux and OS X and Windows really nice. So.
That's a real winner. The fact that you write once, and I mean, this was the vision of Java, wasn't it? Write once, run anywhere, except which is great, unless you want a graphical user interface, in which case you're going to end up with something that looks ghastly.
Yeah.
So with this Qt framework, then, what's the visual perception like across the platforms? So if I was to develop a simple app on Linux, for example, I wouldn't really care much about the other operating systems. But assuming that I did care about the other operating systems, what would it look like? Will it be visually appealing, or do it look a bit like Swing, Java Swing?
No, so it does I'm trying to decide what adjective to use, but it does a good job, I guess, of emulating the platform you're running it on. So, for instance, if you're using it on OS X, then the menu bar leaves your application and goes up to the very top of the screen where you would expect the menu bar to go. So I guess under the hood, it knows that, hang on, your main menu should actually be kind of, what's the word, not delegated, but the opposite, sort of promoted to being the system menu. And I guess there's some sort of clever logic going on only on OS X when it loads up. So it does a very good job of emulating the system you're on, so everything looks native. Obviously, the only downside, which they can't do anything about, it's not their fault, is that there are characteristics when you develop an app which are given to a platform. So, for instance, I find that Mac tends to have like a smaller font everywhere, but a bit more maybe, I don't want to say space because sometimes it can be quite cluttered, but everything's quite small and crisp. Windows is sort of, I don't know, it's really hard to describe, but when you build the app, you kind of go, well, I'm building it for Windows, therefore this is what people are used to. I'm building it for Mac, and you build things slightly differently. And I guess I'm building it for Linux. People aren't really used to a nice GUI, so hey, it's all good.
You just got to get your command line switches right, John, and it'll be fine.
So it does a really good job at emulating the different platforms, and you can take an app and run it on another platform, all the controls look like they're native. They may actually be. I'm not entirely sure how it's working under the hood. Obviously, you've got to, if you really want to make it look native on all three platforms, you've got to put a lot of thought into it. Most people won't. But it always looks good, regardless. You can kind of sometimes tell, oh, it looks a bit slightly weird, like it looks like a Mac application, even though it's running on Windows. But it doesn't look like it because it's using Mac controls. Just the way it's laid out and things feels a bit Mac-y. But overall, I mean, you don't have to do any work. You just build your GUI, hit deploy, you take your code, put it on a Mac, hit deploy. It looks like a Mac application, and you haven't done any work. So.
Okay, and so the underlying language that you're actually coding the application in, then what's that, John? So
this is where I say I guess I'm kind of using it the old-fashioned way. I'm just using it in C++. So it's quite bare bones, sort of to the metal, and that's one of the things that drew me to it. Because, like you say, there is Java as an option, and for most of the little tools that I make, the GUI doesn't really matter, because they're usually modding tools, so I just give them away for free. So even though I don't like the Java GUI at all, if it happened to be the better platform, I would have used it. But I really like the fact that with Qt, you can develop a fully fledged C++ application, which has two really good benefits. One of them is just the speed. You just can't compete with C++ in terms of speed. And the other one is the fact you can use all of the libraries that exist for C++. So if you need to do something which Qt doesn't do, which, to be fair, there aren't many times that I need to put in external libraries, because Qt is just amazing on how many things it does, then you can just dump the C++ library in a folder and then have it compile for your platform and just link it in. So the C++ support is really good. The IDE for it is pretty strong. Every now and then it has a hiccup or two, but it's pretty strong. The major downside of C++ is that it's complicated. It's not a beginner's language. It's not something where you can just dip in and go, I've done some Python, let's do some C++ for a bit. You have to learn about pointers, and you have to know what's going on. Otherwise, you're going to make things crash. There's nothing that Qt can do to stop that. The IDE can point out obvious flaws, but if you've done some pointer arithmetic and you've got it wrong, you're going to have weird crashes and stuff. So.
Yes, so that's slightly lower level kind of skills, isn't it, when you start thinking about memory pointers and stacks and things like this, which tend to be largely abstracted in more high-level languages like Python, or, for example, people who've written Python or written PHP and perhaps never come across you doing anything in C, for example, or C++. Those kind of the way that you handle strings and arrays and in-memory pointers and all those kinds of things can be they're kind of abstracted concepts that you don't think about, and those are the kinds of things that would trip you up. It's those kind of problems we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But on the flip side, I mean, this is the bit I don't really know much about because I do C++ and I'm comfortable with it. I haven't felt the need to learn the kind of easier one. So, but I guess maybe a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago now, they released Qt Quick, which is basically a way of developing your application without doing, I won't say without doing any C++, because you can still integrate it with C++ if you wish, but you can design your user interface in kind of QML, which is like XML, I guess, and then you can write a lot of your, especially kind of controller logic for the UI in JavaScript. So you might have a few methods in C++ that do things, but a lot of the actual user interface, which is quite often the really fiddly bit. You need to create buttons, you need to have a pointer to it so that you can change the text later. But then at some point the button's been destroyed, and then you try and change the text on it anyway, and then it crashes. But if that's all done in JavaScript, you don't have to worry about that, because Qt Quick will take sort of care of all that for you. So I haven't really given it much thought, because I've got a few projects that are already in C++, and there's no need to switch over. But Qt Quick looks like a really interesting development, and I guess now it's been out long enough that I probably should give it a try. I think I dismissed it early on as, oh, it's new. I'll let it mature before I start playing with it, because I don't want to run into any boundaries of like an early product. But the other cool thing about Qt Quick is that you get it's a lot better support if you want to then have your app run on tablets as well. So you can add iOS and Android support using Qt Quick, and obviously the workload is a lot less than if you are doing a full-on Qt app and having to write your UI twice.
So this is what the Ubuntu SDK is as well. So we were talking at the opening of the show about the Meizu Ubuntu phone and all the development that's been going on with the Ubuntu Phone apps. Has all been written using QML and Qt Quick, and in actual fact, I'm largely drawn to the idea that the Ubuntu SDK, when you download that from the Ubuntu Software Center, what you get is just a branded Qt Creator with Qt Quick, just branded up in Ubuntu, and a few what's the word I'm looking for? They probably leveraged a few extra templates and things like that they've put in there that kind of set you on the right path for Ubuntu apps. So, which sounds to me then that with Qt Quick, you are going to be able, and using the Qt Designer, you're going to be able to write for Windows, Mac, OS X. If you're using Qt Quick, then you'll be able to have that run on Android, iOS, and Ubuntu Phone. Does that sound about right, John?
Definitely. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can get your C++ app to run on iOS as well. So, just for, excuse the French, just for shits and giggles, one night I thought, hey, let's try and run my Qt app on my iPad, and it worked with a very mouse-heavy interface.
Okay.
Yeah, it literally looked like a Linux app, just full screen on my iPad. So if I tapped the file menu, it popped up the menu, and obviously things like open file just didn't work because just the paradigm that I'd used on the desktop was to open up a file window at that point. I was trying to remember what it did on my phone. It either didn't do anything, or it brought up like a select a picture, which was irrelevant to what I was doing. But it was super cool that it worked. I mean, all the Qt UI elements had been compiled for iOS, and they worked. And I guess they were kind of leading the way then. They were kind of paving the way for Qt Quick and the iOS apps to come out.
Now, of course, you weren't born a Qt and C++ developer. So you must have started somewhere to begin this journey of, first of all, discovering Qt and Qt Creator, and of course you must have begun and started your journey with C++. Where did that start for you, John? And for people out there, including me and Jack, who are obviously, we're going to create an Uber application in Qt once we've got over the beginners Qt tutorials. Where would we be best placed to start?
That's a good question. I'm sure I have vague memories of when I was tiny in my mother's womb. There was C++ just written all around me. So I mean, C++ is definitely a little bit deep end. So if you haven't done any programming before, I would probably think about either going down the Qt Quick route, or even just trying something a bit simpler to start with and making something in maybe C# if you're a Windows person, or Java if you're not. But I mean, I'm just purely thinking if you're coming from I haven't programmed before background, I think jumping straight into the C++ deep end would be, on your own, would be quite a challenge. Assuming you have had programming experience before, like I know the both of you have, I think the same advice that I always give to everyone who's interested at any level of programming, you've just got to try and do it. Without actually going and having some sort of tutoring by someone sitting beside you helping you through it. You just got to download the code, download Qt Creator, and say, to start with, I'm just going to make a really simple app. I'm going to make a timer, a stopwatch, and I'm going to have it run on however many things. And it's obviously a lot better if you can think of something slightly useful, even if you got one that's because quite a lot of these kind of simple utilities, there are only average versions available for free. So you might want something like we used to find the stopwatch quite useful when we were recording this show, back when we tried to make sure it was always an hour. Fools that we were then. But something like that, which is actually quite simple to make, where you just got a timer that's clicking up and a couple of buttons, so you can stop, start, reset. Maybe like have a button to record the time down the side, so you can be like, oh, we finished this segment, record that. And it's kind of a cool app, and you might be able to find a free version that does it, but you probably won't find one that is so good that you don't want to make your own. And then when you make it and start using it, you get the satisfaction of, hey, cool, I made that. But then obviously the important thing is that in doing that, you've learned a whole bunch of stuff, and it's just a simple app to start with. And your first app might be 80% QML, which is the kind of term they use to both QML, I think, represents the XML and the JavaScript that comes with it. So when you say QML, it means like all that bundled together. But you might have your first app being mostly QML, and then you can sort of just dip into a bit of C++ by writing a couple of methods in C++. But then you might want to extend the idea a little bit and put in some more features, and you can start to move some features over to C++ as a learning experience. And then you might have an idea for another app, which you can sort of think, oh, you know what, that iRacing thing that you've got, the app you were talking about, yeah, you could write a version of that, and you might even just be trying to write essentially the same thing, but to write it yourself and have the source code, and you're like, yeah. And then when you've written something which is the same as the one you can download for free, you're like, well, now I can extend it, so I can have it so that I can just have it filtered by this or that or the other, or I can make sure it always fits on this type of screen, or have it pop up a notification in the corner of Linux or something, so you can start to extend the idea and make it your own app. But I think same advice to everyone, whatever you want to learn in terms of computing across the board really, is pick a simple project, do it, download the tools that you need. If you can get someone to help you for that first sort of 10 minutes just to get you the tools so that you know exactly what you're supposed to be using, and it will be a bit of work to start with. They'll be prepared for hours of it just not working, but then once you've got past the first 20 hours or so, that's when it starts to get really fun, I guess. Not that it's not fun to start with, but you just got to kind of suck it up.
That was just. Did you see that, Jackson? That masterful delegation that John dealt out there. What he's saying to us is, me and you have got to write an @random show timer.
He also said it wouldn't be fun that we had to suck it up, and I don't know about all that. That doesn't appeal to me.
It wouldn't be fun. You just have to suck it up. Well, do you know what, John? I'm up for the challenge. I'm going to try to write an @random show timer, and it's going to have a special feature. And its special feature is that when you press the button that says tag, it's going to have a tag button. What it's going to do is it's just going to grab some system entropy and randomize it, and then just convert that into a time signature, and then just put it on the page. So it'll have no relevance to real time at all, but it will to our show. So we'll end up with a timer that just ticks away, and you click the tag button, and every time we do a seg change, you hit the tag button, and it just picks a random time and just sticks it into the, and then at the end you get a file that just gives you a file of about 6 random time signatures that have no relationship to one another, are completely random. And that will be the @random timer. And if I'm successful, John, if I'm successful in creating the @random show timer, I'm going to open source it under the GPL license.
They'll start using it to write episodes of Family Guy.
Well, it sounds really good. Now, what about instructions? Because obviously, download the complicated IDE and all the other software that you need, and then obviously run that. And with no idea or clue where to start, is there somewhere we should be going to get a Hello World style introduction or something like that?
That's a good question. So I guess I haven't done any searching at all for this on the Qt front because I kind of knew enough going into it from previous things, but there must be, like without a doubt, it's a mature enough project now. There must be tutorials, and that's actually a really good way to start. So just find some Hello World tutorials. They might walk you through. They might even walk you through making a simple timer app or something similar. And just by going through 3 or 4 tutorials from start to finish, you get the sort of satisfaction at the end of seeing something that you made run yourself, even though you might have just copied every line of code from someone else and you haven't written any yourself. Just understanding the process is really important. So knowing the overall steps that go into going from idea to an app that runs. So I think, like I say, I don't have any. Maybe we can find some links to put in the show notes of kind of beginner tutorials, but there must be a bunch of cute beginner tutorials. And then just follow 3, 6, 9 of them, however many you want, really, however many you can find. Go through them, and then by the end of those, you'll start to piece together. You'll be like, that little bit there, that's what I could use in my little egg timer app or something. Oh, that's quite a cool graphical widget. I could use this slider bar or something to do this. Set the time, and then you start getting more ideas. I guess the most important thing is to try and keep it agile. So pick a project idea which either is small or is broken down into small steps, so that you can see progress very quickly. So that's why something like a timer app is great, because you can probably do that in an evening. Once you've done 3 or 4 tutorials, you could probably make that sort of timer app, and it'll obviously be hokey to start with. Like the first version you make will probably be quite hokey, but as long as it works, that's the important thing. Sell it, ship it. That's what Microsoft do.
Excellent. Okay, so I did find, whilst you were looking there, I found some stuff on the Qt project site for beginners Hello World tutorial that basically shows you just literally from the start how to get started and where you can begin. So people watching and listening to the show, if you jump up to the show notes, you'll be able to go and have a look at that.
I think it's really important to go in as well with like a 6-year-old's attitude of like. When you try and learn things when you're older, you get worried that you're going to fail and you're not going to do things. And if you just don't worry about that and just start learning, just type code in and it doesn't work, but why? And then you start asking questions, you've got somewhere to go. You can't break anything. I mean, like, unless you hit delete on your C folder there. But everything's in a little project folder, and the absolute worst you can do is crash your computer. It ain't going to do any permanent damage. So just start downloading tutorials, putting files in folders, and just playing. Really, treat it like a big box of Lego, and even though it's really complicated Lego, just start playing, and you can't break anything. So enjoy the exploration of what's going on.
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of to be said for that, because no matter what you're looking at, no matter whether you're trying to fix something or whether you're trying to manipulate a piece of open source code that you've not even written, you're just trying to get it to do something else. The key is to start, is to jump in, is to get involved, and don't, as you say, I think you're right, don't worry about failure. Sometimes you'll jump into a code base and you'll start messing around, and you'll in the end you'll just think, I've been at this 40 hours, whatever it is, and I've gotten nowhere, I'm no further. And then what you do is you just tell people that it's a very badly written piece of open source code that's terribly documented, it's got very poor methods, and it's largely dysfunctional, don't bother with it. So you don't even have to accept the failures as being your own. You can write them off to somebody else,
That's another very good way of learning, is to again, you need to set your sights at the right size. You can't say, well, I'm going to take Blender and I'm going to make it so that you can have ray tracing, because that's not the sort of thing you do as a learning experience. But you might say, you know what, there's a small app that I use that's open. Like, you might take some sort of text editor or something and say, well, it'd be really cool if it had this little feature or something. And it might only be a feature you care about yourself. It'd be cool if there was a button which I could push and it would count the words. a simple text editor doesn't have that. You can do that, and like you say, if after 5 hours you've just broken the app, you've actually maybe not achieved what you wanted, but you've learned a lot along the way. So the next time you go to an app to try and do that, you'll probably succeed.
I'm going to write into my design spec here this little bit for Rick's. So Rick's AtRandom timer design spec. This is going to have a secondary feature, right? So AtRandom timer, and its secondary feature is it sends. I'm sucking it up. I'm sucking it up. It sends that as an email to Jackson. It's got to have 2 buttons. It's got to have the tag time and I'm sucking it up and it sucks button.
That will go straight into my spam folder along with all the Viagra stuff.
Maybe we can make it a regular feature, Rick. We can have a 5-minute slot where we see how you're getting on with Qt every show.
Okay. Yeah, we could do that.
Because that'll give you like the 5 minutes to focus on, if you've had a chance to play with it, what you've learned and what you get stuck on. And if you get stuck on anything, maybe we can give you a couple of tips and help you along the way, so that you don't get stuck and then never really figure out how to move on. That
sounds pretty good. All right, I'm up for that, John. I don't mind sucking it up.
Take one for the team, Rick.
I'll give it a go. So, obviously, you've been using this for a while. What kinds of things have you created so far, John? Kind of, have you made many apps? Several, 2 or 3, hundreds? What do they do? What kind of things have you put out there?
Cool. So, I think we're approaching 10 p.m. So I'll try and keep this quick. But the biggest one I've written is the model toolkit for a game called Legend of Grimrock. So I originally wrote this app in C#, and then they released their game for Mac and Linux. And I was like, well, I'm not being bested by a game developer. I'll make my tool work on Mac and Linux too, but I'll wait for the sequel to come out, then I'll rewrite the tool. So the tool is, you can load in a model from the game, export that to an intermediary format, open it in Blender, or if you happen to have, however you acquired it, more expensive 3D modeling software, you can then tweak the model, change the textures, and animate it, do what you like. Then you can throw it back towards the tool, and then it will take your model, kind of prepare it for the game. It will give you a little preview of it, so it does all the 3D rendering within the app itself. Give you a little preview, let you make any final tweaks. Like, oh, that texture isn't quite right. Oh, it meant to have slightly more shininess, or this, that, the other. Now you can see it in a renderer that closely emulates the game. And then you hit a button, and it exports that file back to a model, which the game can then read. So people who are making their own dungeons, so this game is kind of like a dungeon crawling game, like Dungeon Master or Eye of the Beholder from 20 years ago, but made in shiny 3D. But they've also released an editor, so you can make your own dungeons by clicking and piecing rooms together and then putting puzzles and monsters in it. But it's really flexible, so you can put your own monsters in. But now you can actually put your own 3D models in using my tool. So that's probably the most sophisticated one, and it's got the 3D renderer in a window, all the kind of GUI elements so that you can edit the model, do little tweaks. I haven't done this yet, but I'm hoping to make it so you can kind of select parts of the model and move them around in the 3D view, and then you can just click a button to export it for the game. So,
thing is, John, I bet yours is one of the few model viewers that doesn't turn it inside out and shove it halfway through the floor when you finally do export it. For some reason, if it was anybody but you, I wouldn't trust any model exporter to do it. I really wouldn't. I've not had a good time with 3D.
I mean, one cool thing that I'm hoping to do is the first one I wrote specifically for this game, and this one I've written a lot more generically. So I'm hoping that the next game that I play that has lots of mod tools, I can then just adapt this tool to work for that game. So looking for more games to add to it when it's done. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yours could be that that thing that you got on, was it Milkshape, when it had all the different exporters?
Yeah, back in the day, 10 years ago.
That's what yours could be, for like a whole new lot. Like, this is the next place that you go for all of the plugins. Yeah. That's God knows 3D needs it.
Mine will be cross-platform as well, thanks to Qt.
Because why not? Because why not? That's the age we live in.
So yeah, so that's the biggest. I've done a couple of other little tools, so little ones where you can generate like a sprite font. So for games where you don't want to have a whole text font, you can take like a font file, TTF, and then just render it into a bitmap so that you can just chop it up and use it in your game without having to. That's very quick for games to render a font that's already been pre-rendered. So.
Sure. Is that
quick?
No, nice stuff.
It's a really cool. It's really nice and easy to do with Qt. Some of the 3D stuff's a little bit, I wouldn't say easy, but then integrating a 3D scene into a sort of 2D widget app is never that straightforward. So it's no more work than any other framework, and it's been a pleasant experience. So.
Well, it certainly sounds pretty good, right? So I'll put that down, and so this model exporter to renderer to 3D blender to back to exporter that creates iRace cars, and I reckon after Christmas, I reckon I'll be able to knock up my little app. We'll be able to model an Aston Martin Vantage without too many problems, and. I tell you what would be really quite cool, though. I wouldn't be able to do this, though, John, because my math skills only go as far as subtraction and, well, multiplication. But I might be able to get as far as multiplication and division. But it'd be really cool to be able to take the textures that come from iRacing, the texture things, and to be able to paint them using GIMP or something like that, and have a little tool that just picks up the output, the TGA file, and just wraps it around the model. So you can go, you add your paint, and then you go, and it puts it into 3D, and you go, oh yeah, that doesn't look quite right. Because painting my BMW Z4 has been, I've had to make so many different paints to get it just the way I want it, because I can't visualize in my head what the 2D texture is going to look like when it's wrapped on the model.
So lots of reloading the game and seeing how it looks, and then changing your mind again.
Yeah. So that's one for another day, though. I'll see if I can get the timer done first.
The timer. I like it.
Good stuff. Well, we're at that time, aren't we? Of course, where it is where we're really running towards the end of the show. So I've put a few things in the show notes there about Qt. And where to get that. I think most people will find that. Just put Qt into Google and you'll find that the link in the show notes will take you to the tools that you need for the platform that you need. You should be able to download them. Certainly on Ubuntu, you can just go to the software center and just look up Qt Creator, and it'll just download and pull everything in, which is where I'll look to get it from when I start playing with it a little bit later. So I have one more thing that I wanted to just update you guys on, which is in this discovery base. So I discovered with this, I had a wonderful time with the NVIDIA GTX 970. Now, as you know, I've got a soldering iron. I'm not afraid to use it. So I took my computer to bits and went to insert the graphics card into the motherboard, and well, I couldn't, because there was pieces of the case were in the way, which was there was a big carry case for the hard drive cable. So I've got a pair of tin snips, and I'm not afraid to use them. So I got the tin snips now, and I jumped at the case and whacked all the rivets off, and then threw that cradle away to create space, which was great. And I thought, wonderful. So I plugged it in. And then I discovered that it's got four power sockets on this thing that it wants. So 4 cables coming out everywhere. Well, I didn't have enough. There weren't enough power sockets on my power supply from my board by the time I'd got a few discs and this, that, and the other. So anyway, not to worry, because in my big box of junk bits, I had another power supply. So so I thought, what I'll do, very straightforward, is I'll just cut up the old power supply that I've got, and I will solder extenders to supply the NVIDIA card. So this was great. So I soldered all them together. I got some. I was very creative with the old shrink wrap. You put over the thing to insulate it and make it all nice. I got it all good, wired it all up, checked it all with my multimeter. It all looks good. Plugged it all in, and eventually put it all together. So one Saturday afternoon, with mucho engineering, and chopping around. I eventually got this NVIDIA card installed and set up, downloaded the drivers, and it was really good. It was really quiet. It lit up with this blue glow that says Wind Force on the side, and I loaded iRacing, and I thought, yeah, this is really good. And I went to the switches, and I switched a few switches, and I got on the track, and I put my foot on the accelerator, and I pulled away, and the machine went and just completely crashed. Not even a blue screen of death, just went off, gone. That was it. Reboot. And it just kept doing that. And so, being the skilled technician, you can tell I must have been skilled doing the things that I've done so far. The skilled engineering technician, I used my powers of experience and wisdom to deduce that my 400 watt power supply that didn't have all the connectors for the card probably wasn't enough. So I ordered a modular power supply, which came with lots of sockets on it and so on and so forth, and I replaced this thing and plugged it all in, and now my iRacing rig runs, and I can, and then I was having a problem, John. I was having this problem where when I was watching the racing back, or even racing, it was juddering. It was like there was this juddering going on the screen, and it was really messing with my eyes. So I discovered this setting. In the setting, it says limit the frame rate to 70 or to whatever it was. So I unticked limit the frame rate, and then I reloaded the game, and it went from 70 frames a second to about 480 frames a second. And all of a sudden, it was amazing, absolutely incredible. And
you probably want to limit it again, but put on something called VSync. Maybe limit it to like 120 and then put on VSync, so that I'm guessing it wasn't on VSync, which means that the frame rendering wasn't lining up with when the screen redraws. But when you have VSync enabled, it's only, I mean, it doesn't matter, obviously, it runs at 400 frames a second, but it's obviously kind of wasted power. Like your graphics card could probably spend a third of the time doing nothing. At the moment, it's rendering as hard as it can, which means it's going to be running really hot when it doesn't need to, because it's 10 times more powerful than it needs to be, sort of. So if you
have a look at that.
Try the option called VSync, and it should lock it to 60 frames a second, but in a pleasant way.
Okay. So it was a bit of an exploration, but there you are. It's up and running, and I tell you what, it felt very race car-like doing that kind of thing. I mean, I used to race minis here in the southwest of England, and I used to build those race cars and build the race engines, and it felt like the same thing, getting all these bits out on the floor, getting all the tools out, and rigging it all together and putting it all up, and it was great fun, and it's working very, very well, and it has improved the driving experience hugely, in terms of the far, we talked about this anisotropic filtering, anisotropic filtering. With that working at full bore, you look up the track way into the distance, and it's all smooth. The graphics are smooth, and the progression across as the road unfolds in front of you, it's all really smooth. And that means that you pick your braking points better, you pick your turning points better. The whole driving experience, for me, is vastly improved because of the visualization that I'm getting with the graphics. So I'm really, really pleased with that card, John. It was great advice. It's an amazing card. It is just super powerful.
I think if you can afford it, not the cheapest card, but if you can afford it, it's just the absolute best value for the buck. At the moment, it's like you get loads of power, and it's not silly expensive. So
yeah. So, well, it seems to me that here endeth the lesson, so to speak. So, I just been another roller coaster ride of AtRandom show, and I've really enjoyed talking about the different things and going through the various topics. So I am going to shut up. You don't believe me when I say that, do you? But I really am. I really am going to shut up in any moment now. So thank you very much for watching and listening and spending time with us. We hope you've enjoyed our company as much as we've enjoyed yours. I'm going to sign off and say good evening. My name's Rick Timmis, And I'll see you soon.
I've looked forward to the next show in a week or two. I've been John Wordsworth. Thank you.
I'm Jackson Matthews, and it's time to turn on, tune in, and drop out.